the next talk is also fitting very well here. It's from Baumann from Ecosia, and he's talking about this changes everything. UX for good is good UX, and he will tell us that there is a tectonic shift going on, that we need to look closely, and this shift is going from our usual way of thinking in the business for just trying to grow the things and make the revenues and the numbers bigger, but maybe more for going for sustainability, and that there is also people changing, also switching this point of view for them. So it's growth versus sustainability maybe, and looking for a balance, and using usability and user experience for this change. And he's also going to tell us some tools and maybe some things that they are doing at Ecosia, the search engine that plants trees. I'm very happy to have him here and looking forward to his talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So, we're beginning to realize, or better to remember, that this is the only home we have. That our home is precious, vulnerable, and not unlimited. We remember that we're not somehow above the environment or in control of nature, but that we're very connected and interdependent on everything around us. We realize that we're deeply connected, and with this realization comes an understanding that we need to take good care of our home. So a new paradigm has emerged: sustainability. It means that we are aware of the cycles around us and that we contribute to keeping them in balance by only taking as much as we need. Thanks to the work of many, most of us have understood this by now on a rational level. Still, we fail to change. Why is that? It is actually due to how our brain works. Our brains are not wired to deal with abstract, long-term issues. Our brains are wired to deal with threats that are immediate and tangible. When we see, for example, a snake, when we're walking through the middle of the jungle and we see a snake, most of the time we can make some good choices and trust our gut feeling to make these decisions for us to avoid to get bitten. When someone taps you on the shoulder from behind, you might be surprised, and in an evolutionary sense, that makes sense because there might be a threat behind you. On the other hand, even if we comprehend on a rational level that this product we're consuming containing palm oil will contribute to more species becoming extinct, this so often does not inform or affect our decisions and behavior. So we decide based on what is immediate and tangible. Climate change and other threats to our environment are not nearly as immediate and tangible as dinner tonight. So, unfortunately, evolution has not really equipped us with the tools to make good choices here. The second reason why we fail to change is because we feel disempowered by the scale and the complexity of the issue. What can I, as a single individual, do? My choices will make no difference. We delegate responsibility to the system. Calls to action for more sustainability are often framed as a moral imperative to do less bad for the collective good. And this is often in tension with more immediate personal needs and aspirations. I think there's a huge opportunity to align these tensions and design for sustainability in a way that meets individual needs and creates real collective benefits. Today, I want to think with you about how good usability can help us overcome these barriers to change. How can it help us make good choices when our biological legacy is making it hard for us to do so? For physical products like this one, this can be a little bit more straightforward. We can start with the design of the product itself. We can design it to be durable, energy efficient, recyclable, reusable. We can design the product with having concepts like cradle to cradle in mind. We can design the form of the product and the packaging to be energy efficient, for example. Focusing on digital products, on the other hand, I want to introduce you to Ecosia and use Ecosia as an example, which is the company I'm currently working at, to show how good usability can facilitate change. Ecosia, as you already heard, is the search engine that plants trees. So we are a general web search engine using the Bing index and ads from their ad network. We donate around 50% of our revenue on an ongoing basis to tree planting projects, currently in Burkina Faso, Peru, and Madagascar. Our vision is to plant 1 billion trees by 2020 with our users, and through that have an impact on a global scale. So what role does usability play at Ecosia in empowering our 2.5 million users? And what have we learned so far? That was too quick. Also here, we start with the design of the product itself. Sorry. So, for example, we use renewable energy and use as little resources as possible to run our infrastructure and build and run our product, therefore minimizing the ecological impact and footprint of our digital infrastructure. This is sometimes referred to as sustainability in design. On top of that, I want to talk about 4 key elements of sustainability through design and give examples of how we are applying them at Ecosia. I think I need to drink something. This is my bottle now, sorry. So, the first one is simplicity. Good usability is key in making the sustainable option as attractive and as easy to use for the user as what we're currently using. So simplicity is about making change easy for the user. If I, as a user, have the perception that the sustainable option is somehow more complicated or less useful, I'm not likely to choose it. If switching itself feels hard and creates mental overhead, I will not switch. If my perception is that the electric car is somehow less efficient at taking me from A to B, I will not choose it. So good usability is key here in making the sustainable option attractive and useful. And seamlessness is key when we design the journey that the user is taking when making the transition, when switching. For Ecosia, that means that we allow people to find, remember we are a search engine, we allow them to find what they're looking for as quickly and as easily as the other major players in the market, which is a tall order, but we have to strive for that. It is also about making switching easy for the users by sticking to established patterns and by making it as easy as just 2 clicks. The second aspect is visualization. It is all about making impact tangible for the user. As a user, I need to see and ideally also feel, hear, and smell the impact my actions are having in the world. That will make me connect with them on an emotional level, and that is how we create positive feedback mechanisms. Especially when you're translating an online activity into change in the physical real world, like we're doing with searching into landscape restoration, you need to bring the good news home to the user. This actually can create some tension with the first point I mentioned, simplicity. One example where I think we have found a good solution at Ecosia is the personal encounter. It is a highly simplified and abstracted version of the positive impact the individual user is having. Our users love that feature. It keeps them engaged, and it is a simple reminder that something good is happening out there. We're now working on tying this feature closer together with even deeper and richer ways to engage with the positive impact. The third element I want to mention is community, the power of the human connection, of relating to someone on a personal and emotional level. It is a basic, maybe the most basic human need. Giving users a sense of belonging is key in overcoming this feeling of helplessness that I talked about earlier. If you're able to create a sense that there is a movement, a sense that I'm not alone, that there are people around me, even if I cannot see them, people that have similar worries and concerns, and that are also taking action somehow, this can unlock tremendous energy and create an immense sense of empowerment. You might also call this social proof, a term you might be familiar with, but I think community is more. It is about finding and leveraging these positive network effects that are always there when people rally behind a common cause. And it is about showing these effects to the users, the individual members of the community, showing them that we are more than just the sum of the individual parts. Our users constantly ask us actually, how can I do more? And to be honest, we haven't really been able to give them an answer by now. We constantly feel this potential of community in our daily work, and we actually think it's huge, but we haven't really found ways to leverage it. Number 4 is storytelling. This is Safia 2 from Tsipele in Burkina Faso. A couple of weeks ago, 2 of my co-workers, Peter and Fatima, visited our planting sites in Burkina Faso to connect with the people there. It was a very hot and dry afternoon when they arrived at Tsipele, Safia 2's village, like it often is in Burkina Faso. Fatima talked to Safia 2 and she asked her how she's feeling about the tree planting activities that her village is taking part in. Safia 2 said that she's happy about them, and she told Fatima a little story. She said, if I see a little child hurting a little tree or scrub, maybe trying to rip it off the ground or something like that, I take the child by the hand and I walk it to this single old tree that is standing at the edge of the village. And I sit down with the child. And I let the child feel the coolness of the shade. And then I say, this is why we need trees. And they understand. This is the story that Safia 2 told Fatima, and the story I'm telling you now to illustrate the power of storytelling. This is a very full day, and you're hopefully hearing a lot of inspiring things. So I personally would not be surprised or offended if you don't really remember anything from what I've said in a couple of weeks from now. But if you remember one thing, I would bet it is Safia 2 and the story I just told you. Why is that? It is because storytelling is a very powerful tool that we humans have actually employed for thousands of years to share knowledge and incentivize behavior. Storytelling can help us a lot in solving complex, abstract issues like climate change and like shifting society, economy, and other systems towards more sustainability. This is where storytelling can actually help us. It allows us to imagine and experience on an emotional level the impact my actions and choices are having. And what is going to happen in the future. I mean, someone just said, who wants to think about 20 years? But we need to do that. And it's hard for us because of our biological legacy, but with storytelling, something that was very far away suddenly can become very close to us. I personally think we maybe need less abstract and cold lists like government A wants to do X, Y, and Z by 2020. Maybe we need them, but what I think we need much more is to tell each other stories of the future that we want to shape. Here's some things you want to think about when you apply storytelling in a digital product context. What you want is relatability. You want your listeners to be able to relate in some way. It doesn't have to be a big aspect, but they need somehow to be able to relate to the story you're telling. And to be able to do that, you obviously need to know your audience and tailor your story a bit. You also want to have an element of tension in there. You want actually for the listeners to follow through to the end. So you want to have some kind of cliffhangers maybe. You can actually do that by revealing a bold statement like, we have planted more than 5.5 million trees. And then you wonder how, where, why. And that keeps you engaged throughout the story. That's the tension I'm talking about. And you want to have an element of novelty in there. You don't want to tell the same old story all over again. You need to find something, even if it's just something small, that is new to the listener. At Ecosia, when we design our landing pages, the first question we ask ourselves is, what is the story we want to tell the user on this page? And then we dig deep into this question. What is the story? Tell me the story. How does the story make me feel? Everything else then follows, like the actual content, information, architecture, and design. With this approach, we achieve conversion rates of over 40%. So to summarize, we have simplicity to make changing easy and convenient for the user. We have visualization to make the impact the user's actions are having tangible and create positive feedback mechanisms. We have community to overcome the feeling of helplessness and replace it with a sense of empowerment. And we have storytelling to inspire and create emotional connections with the why. We have experienced that these things can help a lot in empowering people to live a more sustainable and balanced life. But they cannot get the job done alone. There need to be some basic building blocks in place first for us to succeed, and I want to briefly mention them. This is kind of like a disclaimer. The above, what I mentioned, will not work if you don't get these things straight first. Otherwise, you might end up like this little guy, frustrated and waiting. We need to understand the why. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why are we building this product? This actually needs some deep soul searching on an individual and organizational level. We need to make time for this, and we have to have our answers straight in this matter. There is no alternative. We cannot tell convincing stories to the outside world without knowing and sharing why we're in it for the first place. And we certainly cannot inspire people to change when the product we're building and the company are being built up to be sold. In our experience, exploring the why question can unlock tremendous energy and give the whole organization and everyone within it a new sense of meaning. Second point I want to mention is the business model. Don't switch off. Listen to this. There needs to be a business model behind social change. This might sound strange to some people, but if you really break it down, all it means is that the change you're advocating and the things you're building up are sustainable in themselves. As long as you're dependent on outside resources and capital to facilitate your change, it cannot fully manifest itself in the world. If we, for example, would not involve local communities in our tree planting and not make sure that all conditions are met, that the best possible choice is to let these trees grow, then they will not be there in 5 or 10 years. And then what we're doing, the planting, would not be sustainable. Economics and sustainability should not be seen as antagonists like there sometimes are. I believe rather that a solid business model and making sure that no resources are wasted along the way are at the core of sustainable change. So you might be thinking, this all sounds very nice, but is it actually working? In numbers to date, we have 2.5 million monthly active users, 5.5 million trees planted, 50 million monthly searches, and 250,000 euros monthly revenue. Over the last year, we have grown over 100% year over year in searches and revenue. So yes, it seems like it's working. Still, when it comes to some of the things I mentioned, especially like visualization and community, I think we still have a lot of potential, and I'm really excited about the things to come. Like every generation before us, we hold the future of our home in our hands. Especially after what happened in the US yesterday, I have the feeling that maybe today, more than ever before, we have the power to make this future darker or brighter than ever before. There's a saying that we tell children stories to fall asleep, and we tell adult stories to wake up. Let's tell a story that inspires people and empowers them to act. Let's tell a story of how bright that future will be. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. It was very inspiring, I think, for me and probably for everybody else here. Maybe I will just start with my first question. Well, we've been researching for this event, and very soon we came across this company and wanted to have someone from here. And yet still, I don't use it. Well, can you tell me why people don't use it actually? Because it doesn't make sense not to use it. So is it just because I'm a lazy guy and I don't bookmark or make it the standard search engine on my browser, or what is it?
Yeah, sure. So we're talking about search engine here, right? And maybe you even have one of the portable microphones. I can walk around a bit or steal yours. Okay, thanks. So we're talking about search engine here, and searching is one of the most fundamental ways you experience the web, right? So this is not a small behavioral change we're talking about. I would not underestimate it. You know, it takes quite a lot of effort to get out of your comfort zone here. That's why I'm mentioning all these things, how to make it easier for the user. To be perfectly honest, of course, our search experience is not as good as Google's at the moment. We're lacking some things. We're working on them, but it's very hard to keep up. So there's some people out there that maybe have the feeling that they're not finding what they're looking for as quickly as they need to. I think for the majority, this is actually the case. It's the same speed. But there's also the thing, like the perceived quality of the search experience. So maybe the Google branding and the Google brand are so strong and so sticky and you perceive it as the best possible experience just because the branding is so strong that it is really making it hard for you to change. But I would invite you to give it a try. Yes. I don't think you're lazy, and it just takes 2 clicks, as I promised.
I will. I promise I will try this, and maybe it's a good idea to just tell everybody that's here in the audience to just try it for 1 week. Yeah? The next week is Ecosia search time. So.
More questions? Thank you. More questions? Yes.
Hi. As you're speaking about cultural exchange and the problem of financing that, maybe you're aware there are lots of local currencies now getting implemented everywhere, and I'm not really an expert on that, but I seem to have heard that it's doing quite well. Do you think that could be a possibility, how we could drive that change?
So, yeah, I'm not really an expert in this topic, but I've also heard that there are experiments going on with local currencies. I think what we need to be looking for is sustainable business models, right? I mean, my feeling is that, especially when you look at the web, a lot of the business models are not sustainable, actually. They're VC funded or whatnot. And the ones that are sustainable are often also self-referencing, right? It just goes back into the infrastructure or into the web itself, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but what I'm really looking for, and I don't have the answers, but I would invite you to think about it as well, is how can we use this beautiful infrastructure and connectiveness that we have to find sustainable models that can facilitate change in the real world? I think money is at today not always the limiting factor. I think it's more about actually thinking it through and finding these ways to do it. Crowdfunding, I think, is also a beautiful way to try to make these things happen. I hope that answers your question a little bit. Any other questions? Last one, maybe. I see people.
Then I'll ask a question.
Yes.
So I think sustainable business models are very interesting because sustainability can be two different things. It could be sustainable as in you can live off it, you have a secure financial income. It can also be sustainable in terms of good for humanity, Earth, etc. Does your business model look at the former or the latter? And to get a bit more specific, many search engines obviously make money off of user data. When you're thinking about sustainable products that are respecting of the user's rights, the right not to be tracked, for example, this is something that I'd be curious about, like how does your search engine approach that?
Sure. So what we're trying to do is actually look at both. I mean, this is the exciting part, right? We have sort of like our internal business model, and in a way it is sustainable at the moment because we have been cash flow positive since the beginning. And this way we're able to grow sustainable, right? It was slow and now it's kind of going faster, but still we're growing at a pace where we never spend more than we earn, and we always, even then on top of that, 50% of the revenue goes to tree planting, right? That's what it's all about, at least. There's also this external sustainability. I mean, actually, to be perfectly honest, this internal sustainability, I'm not 100% happy with it because we're still dependent on Bing for the search index. So I think we either have to start looking into building something up on our own or find other ways for people to plant trees to contribute long term. So being perfectly honest, I think we still have also a way to go there. Sorry. And looking at the external sustainability, I think we're very strong there. I think the change we're making happen in the world with the tree planting is sustainable, and we're really putting all our effort with our planting partners in to make that change sustainable. So yeah, I agree. There are two sides to it, and maybe the second one is a little bit stronger already. We're working on it. Looking at privacy, that's also a very important topic. We don't have 100% privacy focus like DuckDuckGo, for example, have. I just named a competitor in a way. But we still try to find a decent level. Also here, some limitations apply because we have to give some data to Bing, like your IP. The search term goes to Bing because this is how we get the results back. We're looking for ways to make this even more privacy friendly, but also being transparent here. I think we're not the strongest privacy search engine in the market, but it's something that we also care about. We do believe that people have to be able to interact with the web without like stripping their clothes off. So there needs to be a healthy balance there. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. This is your applause. Well, and don't forget to do good and use Ecosia for a week, yeah?